Okay, what I'm going to show you here right now is how I create a development workstation for use for writing Java EE7 code under Java 8. I use Intellij Idea for my IDE, and I use Maven to handle dependency and build details. So let's get started. This is Windows 10 64-bit. So the first thing we need to do is grab Java. You do that by going to java.oracle.com. You're going to click on Java SE. You need the standard edition of Java to program the enterprise edition. Java standard edition comes in two version numbers, a really stable version and a pretty stable version, which has a couple extra things. We're going to grab the really stable version, which is always the lesser of the two numbers, and the first one that you see. You want to grab the JDK, that's the developer kit. Accept the license, and you're going to download this one here for Windows x64. Once you've downloaded that, we install it. I always install Java to the root of my C drive. This way it's very easy for me to find. Java puts updates out about 3 or 4 times a year. So it's nice to be able to easily see it so I can see what version I have and get rid of it. So what I do is I change it from program files Java, and I just kind of take this section out. And then I always throw in an underscore x64 at the end. That lets me know that's a 64-bit version. Okay, now it's also going to install a JRE, a Java runtime. We don't really care where that goes, so we'll just click Next and let it install to its default location. Alright, we'll close this out. To do development, you need to set an environment variable and add Java to the path. This is so when you use command line utilities like Maven or Ant or things like that, it can find the Java developer kit. To do that in Windows, you right click on the Start menu here, and you're going to go to System. You're going to go into Advanced System Settings and Environment Variables. We're going to create a new system variable for Java Home. And the variable name is Java Home in all caps. And then the value is the directory that we installed it. So we're going to click on Browse Directory. We're going to go into this PC. We're going to go into the C drive. And we're going to highlight that JDK 18091x64 directory. Click OK. Click OK. And now we just need to add it to the path. And you do that by double-clicking on this path entry here. Click New. And we're going to type in the Java Home, and then we're going to add bin to the end of it. The reason why you add this bin is because inside that directory, there's another directory called bin where all the binaries are to run the compilers and some various other tools. We'll click OK, click OK, click OK, and we'll close this. And then we're going to test to make sure it's working correctly. I'm going to press Windows R. I'm going to type in CMD. This will bring up my command prompt. And we're going to type Java-version. Here I can see that the version of Java I have is installed. And I'm also going to run Java C, because this is the compiler. And this should come up and list all of its options. So now I know that that works as well. Now we're going to grab Maven. And you do that by going to maven.apache.org. Go to Download. And we're going to grab the latest version, which is 3.3.9. There's quite a bit of options on how you can download Maven. For a Windows machine, you want this one here, Maven that ends in -bin.zip. Okay, we're going to open. I'm going to highlight Maven. We're going to close the browser out here. We're going to open up another Explorer window by right-clicking and going to File Explorer. And we're going to go to our C drive. And we're just going to drag this file to the C drive. Okay, I'm going to close these out. And we're going to add Maven to our path. So just like before, right click on the system menu, the start menu, go to system, advanced system settings, environment variables, double click path, click on browse, go into this PC, go into the C drive, and just going to highlight Apache Maven, except this time we're going to highlight the bin directory that's inside it. Hit OK, and we'll see that our Apache Maven 339 is there. Hit OK, hit OK, hit OK, hit OK. And just like before, we're going to test it by Windows R, CMD to bring up the command line. And this time you're going to type in MVN, that's Maven, dash version. And if you see this, your Maven is installed correctly. Okay, now we're going to install IntelliJ. So you're going to go to jetbrains.com, and we're going to grab IntelliJ Idea. Go to download, close this little window out. To do enterprise development, you need the Ultimate Edition. So we can grab a 30-day trial to play around with here, but ultimately you're going to want to acquire a license for it. So once you download it, just double click the installer to install it. Okay, we're going to click on next to get started. The default directory is just fine. I'm using 64-bit Windows, so I'm going to get a shortcut for my 64-bit version, and I'll associate it with Groovy and Java. Okay, so we're going to finish this. Before we run IntelliJ Idea, we want to tweak some of the settings so it runs optimally on our workstations. What you're going to do that is you're going to right-click on it, open file location. You'll see a file in here called IDEA64exe.vm options, or you use this one if you're running the 32-bit version. You're going to right-click this. We're going to open it with Notepad. All right. This is probably pretty good values for most basic programming. My workstation here has 6 gigabytes of memory, so I'm going to have the editor use 2 gigabytes of memory. I'm going to set these both to the same value. All right, we save that. And now we're going to fire up IntelliJ Idea. The very first time you ever launch this, you can just hit OK. We don't have any settings from a previous version. Accept the policy here. I'm going to evaluate for 30 days. We'll accept that license agreement too, I suppose. To get started, we'll just skip all and set the defaults. All right. Before we get started, we want to configure Idea. So the first thing we want to do is go into Configure, Project Defaults. I have to click on that one. And you can go into Project Structure. In here, we're going to configure our JDK. And we're going to do that by going down here to SDKs. You're going to click this little plus. We're going to install JDK. You're going to default to this directory, but you're going to highlight this, our JDK that we installed earlier. Click OK. All right. So then what we have to do now is add some documentation. Hit apply first, because if you don't, it won't default it for you. And click the plus with this little earth icon next to it. And it'll automatically default to the right spot. For some reason, if you don't click apply first, when you hit this, it's a blank dialog box. So we'll hit apply again. And each one of these tabs have some stuff in it. Great. So now we're going to hit OK. Now we're going to configure our Maven and make sure our Maven works with Idea. And you do that by going into Configure, Settings. Okay. Build Execution Deployment. If you open this up, there's a Build Tools, there's a Maven. So it comes with Maven 305, but we have a newer version. So we're just going to hit this little ... and highlight the root directory of our Maven installation, 339. There we go. Then we want to click on this Importing tab here. You want to check Import Maven Projects Automatically. We want to click Sources and Documentation. Okay, I'm going to apply this. Okay, and while we're in here, we want to go into Plugins. I'm going to remove the plugin for Kotlin. And the reason why is in this particular version of Idea, when Kotlin's enabled and I'm using Maven, I get a whole list of null pointer exceptions at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to assume in a newer version of IDEA this will be fixed, but if you're running 2016.1.1, this could potentially cause you some problems. Okay, it's going to ask us to restart, and we will. Okay, at this point we can create our first Java EE7 project. So we'll click this, create new project. I'm going to choose Maven. We're not going to use an archetype, we're just going to create one from scratch. So we're going to click next. With Maven, your project has something called the coordinates, and it's a combination of a group ID, an artifact ID, and a version. The group ID is kind of like a name you just make up that represents a collection of your projects. So for our group, we're just going to call it org.myprojects. And again, you can just completely make that up, but a lot of people seem to use, a domain name kind of a structure to it. And then for the artifact ID, that's like the name of our project, we'll just call it test EE test. And we'll leave the version alone at 1.0 snapshot. There's special meaning to this word -snapshot, but we won't bother that at the moment. This is where it's going to create the project files. So we're going to call this EE test also. And just to make our life a little easier, instead of this directory, I'm going to create a directory right off through to my hard drive called projects. So when finished, it says, do you want to create it? Sure. Okay, once Intellij Idea comes up for the first time, we could turn this off. It's going to do a couple things down here where it's going to index the JDK and kind of get itself ready. Probably a good idea not to do anything until it's done. So we'll just give this a minute to play catch up. Here's a quick thing we can do. We'll click got it, and we're going to click this little button here. Okay. I'm going to drag this Maven deal over here just so it's easy for us to get at. And we're not going to worry about these two panels for now. Okay, we're going to close this down here for a moment. So with our project, we want to create a Java EE7 web application. So without getting too much into Maven, I'm going to show you just enough Maven so you can become really productive without getting into the nuts and bolts of Maven. That's a whole thing on its own. But the first thing you need to do is tell Maven what kind of project we're building. And you do that with the packaging element. Okay. And if you press Control Space, get our autocomplete list, you can choose a bunch, but the one that we care about is WAR. It's a web archive. Once you change that, you'll notice that in the background, Intellij saw our change and kind of reconfigured itself accordingly. All right. The concept behind Maven is it handles a lot of details for us. It's going to handle dependencies. It's going to handle compiling and putting together the parts of our project to build the WAR file. With that said, Maven has a couple of rules that it kind of abides by. All builds are reproducible. So if I were to take this project with this POM file and were to give it to another developer, with any version of Maven, they should be able to produce the same exact output by compiling it with the exact same XML. So what happens is, at the time that this was released, there were certain defaults. And one of the defaults is the version of Java that it uses to compile is version 5. Well, it's 2016 and I want to use Java 8. So we do have to configure our project to use Java 8. And the way that we do that with Maven is we create an element called build. And inside of here are going to be parameters to tell Maven how we want to build our project. Maven works off this concept of plugins. So each part of Maven is a plugin that's responsible for certain parts of it. We're going to create a plugin section. Okay. And here's where we configure our plugins. Now, if you open up this Maven tree here, and I'm going to break this open into plugins, this is going to show you that on this particular workstation, these are the plugins that Maven has right now and what versions that they are. Now, again, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of Maven, but the one plugin that we care about at the moment is this one here, Compiler. Okay, and as you can see with Maven, just like our project, it has coordinates. It's a part of a group called org Apache Maven plugins. This is the artifact Maven compiler plugin and the version of 3.1. This is really useful because we're going to use a newer version. All of these plugins and all these dependencies, Maven reads from a website. Now, right now our machine has no idea what all the available options are. So what we need to do is let Idea go out to the internet and catalog it so we can use that in our autocomplete. So to do that, you go into this settings box here. You can open up the Maven tree and go to repositories. And you'll notice here it says there's a remote repository for repo.maven.apache.org. We're going to click this update button. This takes a few minutes, and I'll just hit OK. And you'll see down here that it's updating. This is something you want to do probably anytime you're adding a dependency to your project for the first time, because it will go out and make sure to have the most up-to-date list of available versions of those dependencies and such. On my really fast internet here in the middle of nowhere, it takes about 5 or 10 minutes to build this catalog. Okay, now that it's done, we can configure our compiler plugin. So we're going to add a plugin element, and it's going to look for our classic group artifact version coordinate. So we'll start with a group, and we know it's org apache.maven.plugins. Okay, and we need an artifact. And again, looking from the left side, we could see that we need Maven-compiler plugin. Now, the version that our Maven has in IntelliJ says 3.1. And when I look at this list, I'm going to see 3.51. So let's use the latest version. Watch what happens when I select it though. IntelliJ is going to automatically see that and reconfigure itself, download it, and prepare itself to use the new version of the plugin. And now it's 3.5.1. So really, really neat. So all of this configuration, all these elements and attributes that you see here are part of Maven. This is going to be the first set of options that belong to the actual plugin itself. So within the plugin, we need to configure it, and we're going to create a configuration section. So right now, everything on the screen is to configure your project with Maven. The pieces or the elements we're about to create that go inside this configuration block are from the plugin. So this particular plugin has two elements that we care about, source and target. And you can make them both 1.8. Okay. We can just minimize this. We don't need this anymore. So now we've configured our project to compile in Java 8. The next thing we need to do is tell Maven that we want to use the dependencies of all of Java EE7. Now, what do I say all of Java EE7? If you look at Java EE7, you'll notice that it's not a single API. It's actually a collection of many APIs. It's all these APIs you see in this wiki article. WebSockets, JSON processing, servlets, JSF, expression language, all of these things. So we're going to tell Maven that we want to be able to use all of these at the same time, and it's actually very easy to do. What we're going to create a dependency section. Okay, this is where we're going to list all the libraries our project needs to work with. So we're going to add a dependency. And again, it's looking for group ID, artifact, and version, our coordinates. The group is JavaX. Okay. The artifact is Java EE-API. By the way, I'm pressing Control Space to force the autocomplete list open. And the version is 7. We want to use Java EE7. Okay. And again, if you notice on the bottom, Intellij Idea sees that and goes in and is downloading the source code and documentation that we can use while developing for this dependency. One last thing you need to do is change the scope to provided. This is important because when you write Java EE7 application, you don't need to bundle all of those things into your application. All these APIs are provided by the Java application server. All right. We can pretty much put aside Maven now. We're kind of done with it for a little bit. So we're going to close our pom.xml. Now we're going to actually create a really, really simplistic application just to get up and running. So we're going to go into source. We're going to go into main. So these directories that you see here are kind of a Maven standard. They kind of have a basic layout for an application. So any project you create in Maven should have this structure or something very similar. Because we didn't use an archetype, we're missing a directory. And that directory is called web app. So we have Java, we have resources, but we need to make a new one here. And to call it web app. And call it exactly web app. That is what Maven is expecting. And you'll see that the icon is a folder with a little earth in it, which signifies that it's an internet folder. Inside of this directory is where we're going to put our website. So we're going to put our starting page here just to get going. So we'll make a new file. And we're going to call it startpage.jsp. All right. And we'll just make a quick HTML5 hello world document to get started. All right. We need to create a directory in this web app called webinf. And again, this has to be in capital letters. This is a directory that any Java EE web application needs to have, because inside of here, we're going to put a file called web.xml. A web.xml file describes your Java EE app to the application server. Unfortunately, in IDEA, you can't just right-click new and create one of these. At least I haven't discovered how to do it this easy way. So here's how I figured out how to do it. What you do is you're going to click on this little settings box up here. It says project structure. You're going to go into the facets menu. You're going to highlight web EE test. And then up here, you're going to press plus. And we're going to choose web.xml. The directory it picks by default is not the directory we want. So you're going to hit ... You're going to go into source. You're going to go into main. And you're going to go to our newly created web app directory. And you're going to highlight web-inf. Click OK. And then you got to jump to the end here and add a / web.xml. And of course, we want to use the latest version. So we're going to choose 3.1. We're going to hit OK. And we're going to hit OK. Now, if we double click this web XML, it's just a boilerplate web XML for any Java EE7 app. And we're going to add just one little section here to get started. And that's our welcome file list. And we're going to choose our start page.jsp. All right. So now we have our absolutely most basic application. So our application is a really good starting place to learn Java EE. So now we want to run this on an application server. So what we're going to do is we're going to go download Java EE application server, which is called Glassfish. To get Glassfish, you can go to the website, glassfish.java.net. Just grab the download link. And we want the full deal, Java EE7 full platform. So we're going to grab this as zip file. And just like before, we're going to right click and open another File Explorer. We're going to go to our C drive. And we're going to drag this Glassfish 4 folder out to our C drive. All right. So now we're going to connect Intellij Idea to Glassfish. And doing this is very simple. There's a little drop down list here. You're going to click on it. And we're going to say edit configurations. Okay. Whatever you do, don't edit these. What you really want to do is click this plus up here. And you're going to look for Glassfish. You may have to click this little ... at the bottom. Let's see. Glassfish server. And you're going to choose local because it's on our machine. All right. It says it's unnamed, so we're just going to call it Glassfish 4. You can name this whatever you want. Okay. You press configure. You're going to press ... and we're going to choose the directory where we installed Glassfish. You're going to press OK. It's detected that it's version 4.11 or 4.1.1. Okay, great. Now we need to go onto the deployment tab, and you're going to click this little plus, and you're going to choose artifact, and we're going to choose eetest.war. You can actually pick either one of them, but we're going to pick the war. There's really no difference. All right, and we're going to use a custom context root. We're going to put eetest. All right, now come back to the server tab, and you got to choose domain 1 from the drop down. All right, it's going to give you this little warning. You just click on the little fix button, and it's all fixed. Press apply. We press OK. We are now fully integrated with Glassfish 4. So to run our application, just press this little play button with a bug on it, because that'll run it in debug mode. It's going to compile it. And then in the bottom here, you'll see that Glassfish is running. I'll click this little now. And all of the output for Glassfish will appear down here. And it's automatically launched a web browser with my application, and here it is, Hello World. All right. We can close these tabs. Now it's kind of neat that it works on Glassfish. So we're going to press stop. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to run this on another web server, something like, say, Wildfly. So to do that, we'll go to wildfly.org. Version 10 is the current version. You click on download it now. And again, it's a zip file just like Glassfish. It's 132 meg, and we want the full distribution. We don't want the cheap one. We want everything. So you click this guy. All right. And I happen to have it already downloaded. And just like with Glassfish, we're going to open up another file explorer, come to our C drive, and we're just going to drag the contents out right to the root of our file system. Okay, so the process of connecting this to Wildfly is just as simple as it is to connect to Glassfish. So what you do is you go into Edit Configurations. I'm going to press this plus again, and then we're going to choose Wildfly. Now, Wildfly is actually JBoss. It's the free version of JBoss. So you can actually click JBoss server, local. Okay, and we're going to put the name as Wildfly. You're going to click configure just like before. With Glassfish, you'll hit ... We're going to choose our Wildfly 10 directory. It's going to think it's JBoss 10. So we're going to hit OK. All right. We're going to go into this deployment tab. We're going to click plus. We're going to choose an artifact. We're going to choose the war file here. One step that's a little different than Glassfish. In Glassfish, you're able to choose a custom context. You don't seem to have that ability in JBoss, but no big deal. I'm going to come back to the server tab just to do a quick review. Everything looks fine. We'll hit apply. We'll hit OK. And the nice thing now is our development environment lets us switch between application servers. So we're going to choose Wildfly this time. And we're just going to press the debug play button, just like we did with Glassfish before. And just as before, you're going to see the output of Wildfly here. It's a little bit different than Glassfish, and you'll see all its internal logging and internal baseball. And then it's going to launch our application, and ta-da! Our application is launched in Wildfly. So now we have a really good environment for programming Java EE apps, and as you can see, it's very easy to use multiple application servers. And you could test against both at the same time. I'm going to press stop on this just to shut it down. I just want to show you a couple quick things about this environment that makes coding pretty easy. If I wanted to, for example, add a servlet in this Java directory, I could do a new class. We can call it this org my project EE test servlet. I'm going to delete this stuff here. Because we have the dependency in Maven, Idea's autocomplete will pick up all of the Java EE7 classes. So it's very easy to create and work with the EE API. What is also nice is because the documentation is downloaded, you have your cursor inside something that's a part of the API, for example, HTTP servlet, I can press Shift F1 and it's going to bring me to the documentation for this class. So this is really, really useful. I can also press Control Q and kind of get like a little mini embedded documentation here as a pop-up, which is really nice. And you'll notice that it's through Maven that it's pulling this information. And again, you'll notice that all the annotations and autocomplete are here for you. I can overwrite my doGet method, and then I can just do a that's it. And on one last note is if you're looking at this project directory, you're going to see this directory here called target. Target is where Maven outputs everything while it's working. In Maven, there's a task called clean. I'm going to close this plugin list, and we're going to open up a lifecycle. You can double-click clean, and if you come back over here, you'll notice that target directory is gone. If you double-click package, that's basically recompiling and reconstructing everything from scratch. You'll see that target directory comes back, and everything's in there. You don't pretty much ever have to do that while you're coding an idea. When you just press this debug icon, it kind of takes care of that for you automatically. And that's it.